Just 1 year ago, I was going through the worst and the loneliest depression. But this is how I overcame that and low self esteem. Hello, I'm Stevie and welcome to my channel. I am from Jamaica, but I moved to Japan in 2023 and I've been working as an English teacher in rural Japan. It's my first time teaching, but I've always had a passion for working with children. I think it's what brings me the most joy, especially working with young children. So I moved to Japan during a very low period in my life. I had just gotten married and already headed for a divorce. And this, coupled with the realization that I may not be able to conceive, really plunged my self worth to an all time low. Plus, I was bombarded with the tormenting thoughts of how much I had disappointed my family, especially my niece and my nephews who I lived to inspire. I felt like such a failure. I just never even wanted to be seen or noticed by anyone. I isolated myself. And I think I also refused to admit or acknowledge to myself what exactly I was going through. It was a really rough period. The opportunity to move to Japan would have either been an escape from my current reality or an opportunity to start afresh. Either way, I knew I needed to do something different. So I took the opportunity and I moved here and I started teaching English. By the way, if there's anybody who wants to know about how to move to Japan as an English teacher, please tell me in the comments. I can make a separate video detailing the entire process step by step. So moving to Japan, I didn't really have much of a choice as to where I'd be placed. So I ended up in rural Japan and it was difficult, but not difficult because there were no livable amenities. I mean, they were all here. A gorgeous city with very helpful and supportive and friendly people. But no doubt it was difficult maneuvering the space and trying to fit in. To be honest, I don't even know why I was trying to fit in because that was bound for failure. As a foreigner living in Japan, you never truly fit in. But I struggled to find myself in this strange place. I struggled with determining what passions to pursue, what goals I wanted to set, and what goals I wanted to aim to accomplish. I struggled also with determining what my next move would be because living in Japan was never an end goal. It was always just a passing through, nothing long term. And these struggles led me to explore a whole lot of things. I tried sports, I sucked at it. I tried some art. I started learning Japanese calligraphy, and I could not write a decent stroke to save my life. But my greatest struggle was trying to make friends. I was never ever good at making friends, even in my own country where everyone spoke the language I spoke. So imagine how much more difficult it would be in a foreign country where I did not speak the language that most people spoke. So safe to say, initially living in Japan for me was a disaster. I was isolated. I felt frustrated at times. It was difficult to cope. Um, and I also gained a lot of weight during this initial period. And if you're a female, or if you know, you know, we just don't feel as attractive when we're overweight. But throughout all of this, one thing remained constant. My career as a teacher was blossoming. The opportunity to teach helped me to realize some skills I didn't even know I had. My students, they taught me so much more than I was able to teach them. They taught me so much about Japanese culture, a culture I would come to appreciate and be fascinated with. They also taught me about the strength of the human spirit. Because even though I spoke a completely different language from them, the raw human nature and the need to communicate saw us finding ways to make that possible despite the language barrier. You know, sometimes I even forgot that we spoke different languages because we were able to bond so well. One of the things I admire the most about my students is their tendency to encourage and support, and even in some cases, to admonish each other. I'm not going to say it's a Japanese thing, and I'm not going to say that we're not like that in my country, Jamaica, but certainly it was something I was never used to. My students would always say, "Gambate kudasai," which means good luck in Japanese, to their classmates whenever they're faced with a task. They would perform their roles in groups, with each member having a part to play, and they would ensure to praise each other when they did well. Another thing I noticed about my students is this: no matter how small or seemingly outrageous or crazy or strange someone's interest was, everyone was respected. Nobody was made to feel stupid for not liking sports or to feel worthless for wanting to pursue a particular career that others may think is not worthy. And I'm so happy for how they've included me into their customs of value and respect. Very quickly I started to feel a sense of belonging to an amazing group of people who were so supportive. They offered me the kind of support I've always longed for, always needed. It's the kind of support that forces one to look deep within and to find their true passion, not because it sounds cool or because it's impressive, but because it's what you truly love to do. I realized that I didn't really need to try to fit in. I realized that we do so much better when we have the support of a community around us. And I realized that sometimes if we don't do well in a particular thing, it's fine. Because sometimes the value in something is just having the experience. My students inspired me to have big dreams, no matter how seemingly unachievable those were. I started working on myself again because if I wasn't going to, then who would? I had to remember that I still had people depending on me to do well. I had to remember that I still had my niece and my nephews to make proud. I had to regain my self-esteem, my self-worth, in order to be a worthy member of society. I worked hard to lose the weight that I had gained. I worked hard studying Japanese in order to be able to understand my students better and be better able to help them to improve their English. I visited places that I liked and I made friends with people who had similar interests as I do. I also learned to praise myself for my wins and to learn from my losses. I don't think we ever truly get rid of all our insecurities, but I can definitely say that now I am way more confident and confident enough to be able to better do my job as an English teacher, my job as someone who works with children. My students made that possible for me. So when I said goodbye to my students recently, I was overcome with emotions. I didn't even realize how much of an impact they'd had on my life. Many of them delivered personal messages to me in English, and that made me so proud. They talked about actual events that had happened that I could remember us sharing together. I remember one of my students saying, "Thank you so much for helping me to prepare for my English speech contest, and thank you for being the one to cheer the loudest after I had delivered my speech." One of my students told me that he always enjoyed sharing the things he'd learned in geography classes with me when I was at English class. One of my students who I'd never heard speak in my entire life came to me and he said, "Thank you so much for always having a beautiful smile, and thank you for being approachable." I am so pleased that I was able to make an impact on my students the way that my teachers in the past and even teachers now, like my Japanese teacher and my Japanese calligraphy teacher, the impact that they've made on my life. I've met some amazing people in rural Japan, and with their kindness and support, I learned to start valuing myself again. For that, I will be forever grateful. I've thoroughly enjoyed this experience and I've learned so much. What's next for me? Only time will tell. But I'm moving on from this experience much happier, more hopeful, and way more confident. Please continue to stay tuned to this channel for more updates on my next journey. Thank you so much. See you.